Welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. We have our little Easter group today. Thanks for spending your Easter Sunday with us. Hope everyone at home is doing well. It's nice to see y'all. Um, Last week we didn't have a Sunday program. It was very strange. One of Sasen's main teachings and something she imparted to me very vehemently is to never miss a Sunday. Never don't do Sunday program. No matter what holiday it is, no matter who's in or out of town, you always do Sunday program. So it was a big deal, at least for me, to not have a Sunday program last week. And we were in a kind of closed container council retreat. I think most of us know what council is about. Community, authenticity, deep listening, and the cultivation and expression of collective wisdom. That's kind of my best elevator pitch for what counsel practice can offer. A chance to be truly authentic, to listen deeply, and to cultivate collective wisdom. Don't want to talk too much about the weekend because, most of counsel is confidential. But I will say that it was a very powerful, very intimate experience. And it was just interesting that it was kind of billed as a counsel training retreat. And so I went into it with this kind of like training mind of like, I'm going to take notes and there's going to be study guides and it's going to be, outlines and history and theory and, informational. That was kind of the spirit I went into it with. And instead, it was much more of a kind of experiential training, which I'm less familiar with. And yeah, it was much more about fostering a kind of spirit of counsel, of collective wisdom, of opening our hearts and minds, hearing others' words as my own, allowing, we had a lot of Sweetwater members, but also a handful of strangers that none of us knew. And all of a sudden, we're in this really intimate space where we're being vulnerable and bringing our full selves. And so, yeah, all of the rub, all of the misalignment, everything, just allowing ourselves to bathe in that messiness was a training. I didn't walk away with like knowledge necessarily, but I did walk away with a very unique and intimate experience, which, as I process it, really is kind of at least deepening my curiosity towards collective wisdom and collective awakening. So that really seems to be the theme here, around counsel and just around, I don't know, my little sphere that I'm involved in. And of course, Saisen was also really concerned with collective awakening. That's kind of the main thrust of the book that we put out of hers, collective awakening. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit today about collective awakening to the best, that we can do it on an Easter in 2026. And so there's a couple texts that I wanted to offer as we, mull over this collective wisdom, collective awakening. And the first one is a poem from a collection that we study in our koan curriculum, the 5 ranks. It's actually one of the final sets of koans that you do with the teacher. Tozan's 5 ranks. And there's actually 2 sets of poems, so there's kind of 10 ranks in a way. The first set of 5 ranks is set up in kind of like a cyclical spiral kind of way. So we're always going in and out of these five ranks. And then the second set of poems attempts to, it's so dangerous to talk about it, but is set up a little bit more hierarchically. This is the first rank, then there's this rank, then there's this rank. And of course, we know that awakening is the embodiment of no rank. I think that's pretty clear. And yet, we can try to play around with ranks. First this, then that, then this, then, I don't know. It's all kind of ridiculous. But these poems are beautiful. And so I just wanted to offer, this is the fourth rank in the hierarchical set of poems. And so the penultimate rank, according to Tozan, is, the title of it is Collective Achievement. And then the last one is Absolute Achievement. Anyway, every one of these words is problematic. But let's just go with it here. Collective Achievement. And the important thing for me in working with this koan, this rank, collective wisdom, collective awakening doesn't necessarily just refer to like a group of individuals having an experience of awakening. It's kind of about eliminating the notion that there are separate individuals in the first place. Right? So if there are 18, 20 of us here today, including on Zoom, it's not that there's 18 people having some kind of experience at the same time. It's that we are all this one achievement, this one awakening of a sunny Easter Sunday, at least here in San Diego. We are all just that one awakening. Doesn't have to do with 18 different experiences. We all become this one experience. I don't know, that's the best I can do. Okay, so the poem says, Buddhas and living beings do not hinder one another. The mountain may be high and deep the water. In the midst of contraries, clear understanding wins the day. And yet, the partridge rails among a myriad fresh flowers. So that is the poem to digest as we're looking at collective achievement. So let's take a look at this line by line. Buddhas and living beings do not hinder one another. It's kind of a nice way of saying they are not different. So a Buddha is the embodiment of wisdom, compassion, oneness, non-attachment. You could say love. You could say interconnectedness. And a living being here, I guess we can assume, refers to the embodiment of separation, karmic circumstances, the skandhas, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. And the other one, I always forget. So yeah, it's in one sense implied that Buddhas have resolved karma and are not slave to skandha reality, whereas living beings are attached and stuck in this world of separation. But this offering that they in fact do not hinder one another, They don't exist in separate planes. We don't have to leave one to become the other. Just our life, our living being life as it is, with our rage and that pain and the vows that we take and let go of. All of it is Buddha manifesting. Um, when the Buddha had his enlightenment moment, when he saw the morning star and woke up, so to speak, he touched the earth and said, "Wonder of wonders, all beings intrinsically are enlightened. They just don't see it because of their upside down thinking or inverted delusive thinking." That's what Buddha said. So yeah, all of us are completely awakened every moment. We are manifesting Zen, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. Um, and this is an interesting one to sit with in council, right? Because as we listen to people talk, whether it's in council or a lecture or just listening to a friend share, it's so easy to start saying, "That's wrong. That's a bad view. They don't get it. I get it." Or the opposite. "Man, they're so wise. They always say the right thing. I never know what to say. They're a Buddha and I'm just a living being." Or "I'm a Buddha and they're just a living being." It's so tempting to want to separate ourselves, compare ourselves, and hinder each other. I wish they would stop talking like that. I wish they knew they should talk less so that they learn how to talk better. I should talk less so I can learn how to talk better. Maybe, but how are we hindering each other because we think I'm the Buddha and they're the living being? Or they're the living being and I'm the Buddha? What if we can let go of that and see everyone's expression as perfect enlightenment? Just an invitation. Then it says, "The mountain may be high and deep the water." So that could be an expression of just diversity, right? Some of us are tall. Some of us are short. Some of us are really deep. Some of us are more go with the flow, I guess you could say. Um, Challenges may seem like a mountain, too high to get over. Sometimes the depth of a situation feels like we're drowning in it, right? So this is pointing to the world of diversity. We vow to bear witness to the joys and pains, the diversity of the world. That's part of our Fusatsu ceremony, right? And then it says, "In the midst of contraries, clear understanding wins the day." So yeah, in this world of diversity, the diversity that arises from the oneness in every moment, not in spite of, not once you get past, but in the midst of contraries, clear understanding wins the day. So all the ways that we find ourselves in conflict, mired in contrariness, people are in power that we don't agree with, our friends start doing something or manifesting behaviors that are against our values, competition. In the midst of all these contraries, that is how we experience our oneness. And it happened in the council retreat. Someone, you think someone's talking too much, or you think someone says something stupid. And that initial, like, hindrance, that separation, we can actually just kind of soften that and realize, oh, wait, what can I learn here? What happens if I listen deeply to this person? What happens if I feel their words coming out of my own larynx as if they were my own words? Then, in the midst of all of this difference, all of this diversity, we can truly experience our interconnectedness, our oneness, and our intrinsic love that we are. This is leaning into the skid, which we talked about a lot. This is the lotus blooming in the mud. And then the last line of the poem, and yet, even though we can have these moments of deep connection in the contraries, yet the partridge rails among a myriad fresh flowers. Somehow different birds mean different things in a lot of these poems, but the way I studied it and understand it, this partridge is suffering and delusion and attachment. So constantly, this is the one thing we can rely on, is impermanence and disagreement, change, railing. We know that intrinsically everyone and everything is Buddha, and in the midst of all the differences, and yet we wake up in the morning irritated, and yet we have to kick people out of our lives and deal with mental health issues and deal with persecution and oppression and war and this railing partridge constantly. And that's why our practice never stops. That's why activism never stops. Because this partridge is going to keep railing as long as we're in this impermanent third dimension. And maybe Herb can tell us a bit about how the aliens might hook us up with some new stuff. And Bill Maher is now an alien guy, apparently. Everyone. It's very interesting. So yeah, this partridge is going to keep railing among a myriad fresh flowers. And so that to me is just such a mind-busting expression of how the partridge and the flowers and the contraries and clear understanding, Buddhas, living beings, really are just this one big cloud of this. And this collective awakening, this collective wisdom is opening up to that. Really opening our hearts to this non-duality of partridge and flowers, Buddhas and beings. It's just one big, messy, beautiful, perfect cloud of this. So that's the fourth rank of the Kokungoi. I forget. Anyway, Tozan's 5 ranks. You just have to get through about 550 before you get there. So have at it. Super easy. Okay, the next text. I'm just going to read. I went to this thing yesterday. It's a series of, what is it? It's a workshop, a monthly workshop that's offered right down the street here at Vision Culture. A monthly workshop on wellness in the activism space. So important. It's for activists and advocates to come together and learn and study um, wellness, uh, mental health, mindfulness, being trauma informed, different panel speakers, psychologists, lifelong activists. Anyway, they call it the Community Workshop for Empowerment. It's hosted by the Black Panther Party of San Diego, Vision Culture Foundation, the Radical Healers Collective, and Asian Solidarity Collective. It happens every month. It's an incredible gathering of people of all walks of life. And it's just, I think for a long time, ever since I was a kid, I was so moved and like driven by the notion of bringing spirituality, wellness, but mostly, awakening practice to the activism space. And it's just happening. It's happening everywhere, and it's so heartwarming. And so they have these principles of gathering, community agreements that they put out for each of these workshops. And as I read through them, a lot of it is reminiscent of the guidelines for council that we studied a lot last week. But I just thought that this list of principles of gathering is just full of Dharma. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that these are the principles of our gathering necessarily here at Sweetwater. I just wanted to read them because as I was reading them, they were just offering me a lot of help with my practice. So I'm just going to read through them. There's kind of a few, so I'll try to be brief. Number 1, honor the circle. We enter this space as equals. The circle reminds us that every voice carries value, every silence holds wisdom, and every person is both a teacher and a learner. Number 2, move at the speed of trust. Relationships take time. We practice patience and grace. Acknowledge the land and lineage. We recognize that our gathering takes place on the unceded lands of the Kumeyaay Nation. We honor the ancestors and communities whose resilience makes our work possible. So that's so resonant since we also in Zen honor the lineage that has passed this ancient practice down to us. And I wonder if we can do that always. In the restaurant, in the grocery store, at the school, remembering all the people that stewarded this land, these practices, these communities for us today. Inclusive justice. Create spaces that are inclusive to all members of the community and account for everyone's needs. I love this, including taking precautions for the health and safety of our immunocompromised members. How thoughtful is that? We never see that. I love that. Speak from the I, or as we say, use I statements. Share from personal truth, not assumptions about others. Listen to understand, not to debate. Oof. And to hear that in a social justice space, this is huge, y'all. Huge. Next one, practice proactive and restorative dialogue. If and when harm occurs, pause, breathe, and return to dialogue rooted in curiosity, compassion, and accountability rather than punishment. Next one, mind technology's impact. When using phones, cameras, or recording tools, do so with consent and intention. Be aware that technology can both connect and extract. I've never heard it worded like that. Center collective liberation and community healing. Recognize that many who gather here are survivors of systemic harm. Our presence should affirm safety, not replicate oppression. Be very cautious of that on the Zen path. The Zen path is full of trying to jar you, pulling the rug out from under you. And we really need to name that as a potentially not safe style. Repair requires accountability. When conflict arises, take responsibility for repair. We respect the space and each other, uphold boundaries and confidentiality. Power and privilege. We acknowledge that power corrupts, and therefore we are a collective that operates from decentralized leadership. We do our best. The last three aren't the guidelines, they are liberatory conduct. Liberatory conduct. A lot of people talk about Buddhism as a practice of liberation. And I love that that's the language being used in social action spaces too. Liberatory conduct. Number 1 is engage with purpose. Participate fully. Show up for collective transformation, not performance. This one's so hard. So hard, for me at least. That's a huge thing. Because sometimes I feel like everything I do is either to be seen as doing it or to like tell myself I'm being good. Even like going to the gym, I don't show up because it's like for the purpose of being healthy. It's so that I can go to bed that day being like, oh, I was good, I worked out today. So yeah, participate fully. Show up in the yurt, ready to tackle the true nature of the universe. Ready to experience collective awakening. Show up in social justice spaces not to feel like a good ally or someone really smart with the answers. Show up open, fully. The next liberatory method of conduct is to reject domination. Liberation requires unlearning toxic hierarchy. We resist tendencies to control, speak over, or diminish others' experiences. Again, how does that work in the Zen space? So much of my training was either a teacher or another Dharma brother or sister correcting me. And in my teacher's case, sometimes straight up interrupting me and pulling the rug out from under me. And it was dominating. And it was liberating. So how can... that's a tough one for me. I've gained a lot from being dominated. And that could speak to my white male straight privilege. I needed to be dominated in like a systematic way or, an intentional way as opposed to an oppressive way. I don't know. That one's tough. And then celebrate creativity and resistance. And what they say for this one is a quote from Grace Lee Boggs. And her quote is, "A revolution that is based on the people exercising their creativity in the midst of devastation is one of the great historical contributions of humankind." That's kind of nice. So I love those guidelines, those community agreements. I gained a lot from reading through them. I hope they offered you something to take with you. I hope they echo in this yurt as we move forward. And thank you for engaging in this collective awakening. Whether you know it or not, you're doing it if you're here. And in the world. And in the world. Collective awakening isn't just in the Zen space. Every day we have the opportunity to invite this collective achievement. So let's say hello to our neighbors and invite that achievement.